Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation. I think I can be very brief because Francesco gave such a nice overview about the crisis policy, but my contribution will be a little bit complementing it. Okay, so I will rush through and have more or less to say similar things. Here we are. We had the Great Recession, just a picture to show you the different timing of coming out of the recession. The United States, which caused the recession more or less with this subprime crisis, came out much rapid than the Eurozone. We had this double-dip recession in 2011-12, and only in the last 2-3 years we checked up. And only in 2014-15 we had to break even, meaning that we reached the same level as the pre-crisis. Okay. And the other thing is what also was said, the fragmentation of the Eurozone. The ECB has to make a policy for the average. And look at this. This is not the average. This is the divergence. We have a big divergence. Germany picked up very quickly, but many other countries, especially in the south of the Eurozone, look, Portugal, only in 2019 will reach the pre-crisis level of GDP. And Greece, look at Greece. It's a real catastrophe. 25% drop in GDP. You must imagine this. Okay, policy reactions. In the first stage of the global recession, the fiscal policy was very active. And you see, fiscal policy was so active, Keynesian, in a Keynesian style, that the debt to GDP ratio jumped up very, very, very fast. And especially in the program countries, so-called program country of the Eurozone. But now, in the last few years, we had a consolidation in fiscal policy and therefore no additional stimulus. And so only the monetary policy remained on the scene as the only player to be expansionary. And as already told by Francesco, there are three instruments: interest rate, the conventional policy, asset purchases, the QE, unconventional policy, and forward guidance. Okay, I just go through quickly. What was not said so explicitly is, and I would call this, and also in the booklet published recently, I mentioned it, the ECB is more or less the crisis winner, because he's the only big player now to stimulate the economy. And he has now, or she or he has now three functions: making monetary policy, being a partner in the Troika process, and being a partner in the banking union system, and in the single supervisory mechanism is playing a major role in overviewing the banking system in the Eurozone. Okay, these are the interest rate reactions. What is only interesting in this comparison is that the Eurozone or the ECB reacted delayed compared to the US, to the crisis, and compared also to the UK. And also the coming out of the crisis, US were quicker, much quicker than we will do. We don't know, and we come to this speculation when it will start to end. And these are the interest rates. We saw this already, the coming down of the interest rates. And these are the QE reaction, quantitative easing, collected by Oxford Economics. And you see more or less così fan tutti. Everybody did this. Okay, here we are. US were quicker, UK, and the right-hand scale is Japan. 90% of GDP in QE, and we have in the Eurozone only 25, 27. US, and the US is going down, and we can forecast that also in the Eurozone it will be reduced. So this is the volume of QE measures. And I just wanted to say this comparison says, così fan tutti, everybody is doing the same policy. This is the program of the EPP, consisting of three parts. You see here, EPP is the broad program consisting of these 4 components, starting in March 2015 with 60 billion, then it was extended to 18 billion, and now it is reduced since April this year, and going to end to the end of this year. And we have already collected or bought holding assets in the volume of 1.7 billion euro, and until the end it will be 2.2. Okay, and I come now to the point. What is the intended and unintended effect of the QE process? Intended is avoid deflation. Okay, stimulate inflation. Stimulate the credit process. Banking should give credit to the investors. Stimulate the investment by this credit process. The unintended effects, we have also unintended effects. The stock market are booming due to the low interest rate. You can buy stocks with this low interest rate. Financial markets more or less distort the prices. Debtors versus saver problem, distribution problem. It's good for the financing of state budget. It's bad for the savers. I come to this. And maybe, and we will hear it in the next presentation, I guess, about this UMT program, which was only announced, maybe illegal government financing. So this was also a court ruling already, but the European Court of Justice said it is allowed to do this. Many economists do not accept this ruling. Okay, what are the successes of the ECB crisis policy? The main success, I would say, was after this Draghi speech in London in July 2012. Within our mandate, the ECB is ready to do whatever it takes to preserve the euro. And believe me, it will be enough. Is it the role of the ECB to preserve the euro? No. The mandate for the ECB is only to preserve price stability, but not to serve the euro. But he said it. And the effect of the Draghi plus UMT announcement was, as was already showed, the jump down of government yields, okay, especially in Greece and also in other euro area countries. And here is a graph from the Constancio speech, and you see, of course, the government yields went down, also the bonds of non-banking, banking bonds, etc. And exchange rate, nominally effective exchange rate went down a little bit. Stocks went up, stock prices went up. Is this wanted, a wanted effect? No. The wanted effect was to increase credits, to ease credit conditions. This was done here, as you can see, credit condition went down. What would be the failures, if you will call it failures? Well, ECB lost control over the inflation. Also, this is the major mandate to secure price stability, and it maybe is targeted the wrong inflation. Look at this. Inflation, well, it jumps up and down after the crisis, it jumped up and down, and the latest estimation for April is, I think, 1.9, and we are not near 2%. And what is the inflation rate which the ECB really can control? This is the core inflation. Core inflation means headline minus energy and food. It cannot control, as you can see here, the big fluctuations of the headline inflation is stemming from energy prices up and down. And can the ECB control this? No, it cannot control it. I see no big increase or decrease in the nominal exchange rate, the US dollar euro, but a big increase in the stock prices. And here is the distributional consequences of the ECB policy. And you see, some call it financial repression. It's good for the government, financing government budgets, okay, positive. It's negative for the financial corporations. It's negative for the household savings loss. I found a reference in German savers lost 65 billion per annum in this period. And then you can calculate for your country, maybe it's not so big because it's a smaller country, but in Austria it would be a tenth of this effect, okay? Yeah, more or less. So what is the other effect? We have a problem with the target 2 balances. After the crisis, it was a big divergence in the balances. Germany is a big jumped up and other countries down. There's a disequilibrium. And after the QE process, it went apart again. So this disequilibrium. How much contributed ECB to the recovery? Well, he says in the statement, well, usual growth drivers failed, world trade is slowed down, fiscal policy stopped, structural reforms are absent, and the ECB policy since 2014 contributed more or less half of the extra GDP. Now, well, what is the extra GDP? Nobody knows. I just fixed the GDP in the first quarter of 2014, said constant, and then the difference would be 0.3 percentage points per annum. And how is this to explain? I made simulations with the Oxford Economics World Macro Model, and you see if you look at the MRO is the main refinancing operations effect, and the QE effect would be 0.3%, and this is a negative. Well, you could say half of this effect in this period is going through. But anyway, the elasticity of these two policies, conventional and unconventional policy, is not very big, at least in this model. I mean, this means that 1 percentage point decrease in MRO would cause a 0.5 percentage point up in the inflation rate, but very, very low GDP. Okay. Well, sequences about ending this crisis policy. The latest statement in March and the new statement end of April more or less are copied. The statements are copied from this, so it's nothing new. It is said that the key interest rates will kept unchanged and well past the horizon of our net asset purchase program. I would say after 2007, not before. It will start to increase interest rate. And the APP program will at least run until end of 2007. Maybe afterwards there will be a tapering. Okay, conclusion, the ECB will likely end the APP before hiking interest rates because otherwise it would reduce the effectiveness of the APP. Draghi speech, inflation is still not sustainable. Well, you could say we have now reached already 2% in February, and then it went a little bit down, and 1.9% in April. So I would say we are there already, so we could stop. Okay, now compare the Fed versus, no, these are the forecasts of the staff projection and other projections saying that inflation is still not reaching 2%, also the core inflation not. Okay, and now compare it with the United States, and you see the United States have a dual mandate, maximize employment and stabilize prices. The ECB only has, as I said, one mandate, primary mandate, price stability. Below 2%, but close to 2%. And Bernanke said, if the unemployment rate is going below 6.5%, we can taper, we can start tapering quantitative easing, which they did. And I'll show you in the next slide. Then I'm more or less over. Here's the Fed starting the Fed policy, Fed federal funds rate, comparable to the main refinancing operation rate of the ECB. They started at the beginning of 2015 already to go up, whereas the Fed QE3 program was tempered and finished in 2014, whereas we only started with this process. So at the end, we don't know when it will be end, maybe next year. And what does it tell? What does the Taylor rule tell? Well, the ECB, if you would ask them, do you use the Taylor rule? No, we don't use it. We don't use it. It's an invention by Mr. Taylor for the Fed some years ago. If you look at this, these are estimated standard Taylor rules for the United States, and more or less they followed it. Taylor rule already forecasted to start with the increase of interest rate, which the Fed did. And what is the ECB doing? Well, the Taylor rule would have forecasted to reduce the interest rates below zero already, and it should start to increase it, but we are waiting. Okay, then we come to the conclusions. Well, Great Recession is a big problem. Both players, fiscal policy and monetary policy, had to react. After the fiscal policy stopped stimulating because the debt volumes increased too much and they consolidated, the ECB took over a dominant role. It is now a multitasker, makes monetary policy, is partner of the Troika process, is the partner in the banking union. And you could say the major impact of the ECB crisis policy was not so much in the real sector, the impact, or in the inflation. They couldn't control inflation. It was a big impact was on the financial sector, in the financial sector. The biggest impact in the financial. One could say we could stop unconventional policy if we would have a decashing society. When we have a decashing society, you can go down with the interest rates to 0.5 or minus 1 point, minus 2 point. The savers couldn't react. At the moment, savers would react. If you would go down with the saving accounts below zero, there will be a banking run. So decashing in the future wouldn't make necessary unconventional policy. Well, we were lagging behind starting the crisis policy, and we are lagging now behind in ending it. And so this is also my end. Thank you very much.